Dr. Robert Keller, MD, was named one of the world's 2,000 outstanding scientists in the 21st century and served on the scientific review panel of the National Institutes of Health and the Veterans Administration. Dr. Keller served on the faculties of the Mayo Graduate School of Medicine, the University of Wisconsin, and the Medical College of Wisconsin. He published more than 100 original articles in various scientific and medical journals and was awarded several patents. Dr. Keller was elected to the Board of Governors of the American Academy of HIV Medicine and served on the Scientific Advisory Board of several biotech companies. The Consumer Research Council named Dr. Keller one of America's top physicians in 2003, 2004, and 2005 in the fields of internal medicine, immunology, and hematology. Max International and its associates are extremely grateful to Dr. Keller for his pioneering glutathione research that led to the development of Max GXL. The following interview was recorded prior to his passing in June of 2009.
Dr. Keller, thank you for being with us today.
I'm very pleased to be here.
Tell me about your desire to practice medicine. Why did you decide to go into medicine?
I went into medicine because I really thought it was the way to help people. I'd seen a number of my relatives ravaged by disease when I was a kid. I was particularly interested in science, even literally from the time I was in grade school. I did my initial training in internal medicine, and then rather than take a rather lucrative job in internal medicine, I essentially apprenticed myself to a mountain of a person in immunology and spent the next 3 years basically doing nothing but being in the lab.
Dr. Keller, tell us about your practice, the kinds of patients that you see, the kinds of practice that you have.
We're privileged to treat a variety of patients, some of which have HIV, some of which have chronic fatigue immunodeficiency syndrome, some of which have fibromyalgia, a plethora of which have a variety of autoimmune diseases, some of which have been named and some of which haven't. We also treat patients who have already undergone therapy for cancer. We do not do cancer therapy here, although I am qualified in oncology, but we do kind of put back the system after the poisons have worked on the cancer so that the body can reconstitute itself and that they can again have some quality of life. We also deal with age management and how to get the body to function maximally using those three parts of the circle, the brain chemicals, the immune system, and the endocrine or hormone system, as a way of kind of recreating what you had when you were 20.
It seems to me the best place to start in order to understand this incredible product is how our cells function. Tell us about that.
On a cellular level, understand that a cell goes through metabolism. That is, it takes in glucose, and in the presence of oxygen, it utilizes that glucose to get its engines working. And you live on oxygen, and oxygen's a wonderful thing, but oxygen burns. And every time it burns, if you don't counter that burn with an antioxidant, you suffer the consequences. Consequences are cell damage, premature cell death, increased cell death, and dysfunction of whatever organ that is involved.
How does that happen to our cells?
As you get older and you're exposed to a number of things, let's just go over them in general. You should get 8 hours of sleep a night. I went to college, I never got 8 hours of sleep. That's called your cumulative sleep deficit. Now, the body regenerates itself during sleep. If you miss the sleep, that regeneration doesn't happen. And as a result of that, your hormones begin to fall off. It would be wonderful if we all ate what we should, but we don't. It would be wonderful if nobody used alcohol, but we do. It would be wonderful if nobody smoked, but they do. It would be wonderful if we all lived in an environment that wasn't polluted, but we can't. Okay? And if you cumulatively add all of that stuff over time, you're putting an unbelievable burden on the body and saying, well, go, respond. Do the best you can. Well, the best you can becomes less and less and less and less. Everybody's experienced the senior moment, okay? Senior moments are very common, and they occur in your 40s. Now, there's an interesting paradox. The fact of the matter is, your brain improves the ability to create memory circuits until well in your 70s and maybe even into your 80s. Well, if that's true, if you're improving memory, why are you having senior moments in your 40s? The answer is those cells are not firing, and one of the major, if not the major reason for that is a lack of appropriate ATP, and that boils down to a lack of appropriate glutathione. And one of the things that really irks me is you see a 50-year-old, and I see them frequently, who've been to a doctor, and their major complaint is, I used to run all the time and I don't have the energy to run anymore, and take it to wherever you want. Tennis, racquetball, volleyball, swimming. I don't have the energy anymore. Why don't you have the energy? It's not because you're 50. It's because these cumulative deficits over time have basically worn down that engine. An untoward percentage or number of cells is being prematurely asked to leave through programmed cell death, and the organism just ain't what it used to be. Those cells, which are feeling the effects of all the years of neglect, and I don't know how else to put it, are in fact not functioning with the ATP quotient that they had before. Now, one question that could be posed is, why do I care? I'm in my 20s or I'm in my 30s. Okay, I'm well, I'm healthy, I have energy. There's really nothing going wrong. Wrong. The fact of the matter is that slow downward spiral as a result of cumulative sleep deficit, as a result of wrong foods, as a result of alcohol, smoking, whatever else we do that's immoral or fattening. All of those things contribute to a low level of inflammation. Now you're in your 50s and you're going to the doctor saying, I can't run the way I used to. And the doctor says it's because of age. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not because of age. It's because of a lack of antioxidants and too much inflammation caused by all of the things that occur cumulatively in life to rob you of your vitality.
You've mentioned ATP, glutathione, antioxidants. How do those things figure into this cellular process that is robbing us of our vitality?
The body works on the basis of electrochemical circuits. And the key circuit for every cell in every part of the body is a substance called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. The more ATP a cell makes, the better it will work, because in the process of creating ATP, the cell goes through a number of chemical reactions that cause this oxidation or this burning, because we are oxygen-based organisms. And in order to get the maximum amount of ATP out of that cell, each one of those numerous chemical reactions have to be quenched. The fire has to be put out so the next reaction can be as strong as the first one. You create chemical reactions, or you conclude chemical reactions with the production of electrons that are not neutralized, and therefore every subsequent reaction in the chain is going to be less efficient than the one before. So the fact of the matter is that by protecting those oxidative reactions in what's called the respiratory chain, you improve the ATP of the cell.
So the more efficient we can make a cell's chemical reactions, the more long-lived it will be.
Right. The more functional it will be, and the longer it will be allowed to live. The body has a major programming system called apoptosis, where if a cell does not perform up to the level that the body, in general, believes it should, that at a given point it will be sent a signal to die. It's programmed suicide. And the older and more decrepit the cell gets, the more quickly it's going to die. And the way to protect it from getting old and decrepit is to give it the things that will give it the ATP so that it can function efficiently, whatever that may be.
That sounds really complicated.
Well, let me tell you a story. We all start off as pristine iron pipes. And just like iron pipes, we're exposed to the elements. In our case, the element is really oxygen, which we need to survive. Notice that the astronauts never go outside of the spaceship without oxygen on board. On the other hand, unfortunately, oxygen is kind of a two-edged sword. By that I mean it is necessary for survival, but it causes damage. Take an iron pipe that just came from the smelter. Perfectly normal, looks beautiful, just like we do when we're born. But over time, if there's no maintenance to that pipe, it starts rusting and then pitting and then decaying. Unfortunately, so do we. The process may take a lot longer than it would in an iron pipe, but the process is exactly the same. And the reason for it is exactly the same: oxygen. Now, if the rust is in your arteries, we call it atherosclerosis. If the rust is in your brain, we will eventually call it Alzheimer's disease. If the rust is in your liver, we'll ultimately call it cirrhosis. If the rust is in your kidney, we'll ultimately call it end-stage renal disease. And lo and behold, if it's in your pancreas, you'll wind up with diabetes. But the central process is rust. Rust on a pipe is equal to inflammation in the body.
Rust, then, is equal to oxidation. Now, define an oxidant for us.
Your body burns oxygen as fuel. It's a wonderful thing. It allows sugar to be metabolized into ATP, again, depending on how much glutathione is present. But as a result of that, if you think about oxygen just outside of the body and you put a match to it, it ignites. It is a burning substance. And in point of fact, the same thing happens in the body. The obligate result of using oxygen as the fuel to essentially create all of these chemical reactions is that you create burning substances every time a reaction occurs. And that can damage the membrane of a cell. It can damage the function of a cell. If in point of fact you oxidize something, which you have to do because oxygen is the fuel on which all humans perform. The fact of the matter is you create these oxidants which could eat at the cell. And the only way to take care of that is to produce or generate or instill an antioxidant that will stop the rust, will basically stop all these other chemical reactions that are cumulatively deleterious to the function of that cell.
And that's the job of the antioxidant. Tell us about antioxidants.
There are many things that function as antioxidants, and they all have specific or peculiar jobs or particular jobs. The fact of the matter is, not all antioxidants are created equal. And in the hierarchy of antioxidants in the human body, glutathione is the top of the mountain. Many of the things that we think of as antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E, and a number of other things, actually work by either protecting glutathione from having to be used in other oxidative reactions that are occurring elsewhere in the body, not inside of the cell, or in fact allowing glutathione to be more prevalent inside of the cell where its primary function of protecting those oxidative reactions or quenching those oxidative reactions during what is called the respiratory chain, the ultimate result of which is the production of ATP and therefore the functionality of that cell. A particular one that has gotten a lot of publicity lately is resveratrol. And resveratrol comes from the skin of red grapes and is supposed to be a very powerful antioxidant. And in fact, it is. It's a powerful antioxidant because it improves the ability of the cell to produce glutathione. Its function is not its own. Its function is feeding in to the paramount antioxidant in the human body, and that is simply glutathione. More glutathione, better off the cell is. More ATP is produced, better functioning that cell does. Less likely to be looked at by the body and told, you're no good anymore, goodbye.